For software development kits, there are some unique considerations you need to keep in mind when it comes to software licensing. Getting it wrong could mean that way too many people have access to the SDK. Although it is a bit more advanced to sell and protect an SDK, I will today also cover how you can turn that challenge into an opportunity. I'm Joe Norman with CryptoLens. Let's get started. Software development kits are becoming more and more popular, and it's easy to see why. As software companies are also becoming more popular and advanced, developers see a growing interest in not having to reinvent the wheel. Selling libraries, APIs, and documentation is therefore a great solution, and they can be very profitable as well. Now, the reason why SDKs have unique licensing requirements is because of end users. This is what I mean. SDK licensing is where you distribute a component, such as a library, that will later be a part of another commercial solution. To keep it simple, this image illustrates the purpose of an SDK. Let's say that company SDK in the image is the company that develops and sells the SDK. And it is therefore the company that implements a software licensing system to restrict who can access the SDK. The customers of company SDK are called customer A and customer B, and they each get one license key so they can access the SDK. It's pretty straightforward so far, right? The two customers integrate the SDK into their own software products that they sell to their own customers, and these customers are called end users because they are the final customers in the chain. So what is then the difference between licensing an SDK compared to a desktop application, for example? Well, because the customer of company SDK is not the end user of the SDK itself, all of the end users of customer A will share customer A's license key and all the information stored within. And the same is true for customer B. This is of course not ideal, since the intention is to only allow the customer and not all of the end users to access the SDK. Desktop applications will usually not run into the same problem because their end users are most likely their own customers. This scenario poses both challenges and opportunities. To protect the SDK, the software licensing system has to make sure that end users are not able to access the SDK. The positive aspect is that you have a lot of freedom to implement a very effective pricing model that charges for the actual value customers receive. An effective way to price an SDK could be to charge customers per end user or per installation of the SDK. That way you ensure that the more value customers get, the more they have to pay. Going back to our example, customer A has a lot more end users and will pay a higher price as a result. As a final remark, I would like to highlight the fact that not all SDKs are alike. The SDK is required to have an internet connection in order to keep track of the end users and installations. So this pricing model is not possible in an offline setting. We at CryptoLens offer you another solution for offline protection, which involves including the application identifier within the license file. Please check out the description below for a full technical implementation guide, but it is of course also possible to charge for end users or installations even with our software license management tool. I'm Joe Norman with CryptoLens. Thank you for watching. Stay smart.